Imagine a Persian scout, his heart hammering against his ribs, cresting a ridge in the early morning mist of August 480 BC. His eyes scan the narrow coastal pass of Thermopylae below, expecting to see the back of a fleeing Greek army, a disorganized rabble scattering before the unstoppable force of the King of Kings, only for his breath to catch in his throat as the mist parts, to reveal not retreat, but a spectacle of chilling, deliberate preparation. 300 men, not in a defensive huddle, but methodically exercising, combing their long hair with a ritualistic calm, as if they were in their own barracks and not on the precipice of annihilation. While behind them, the sounds of thousands of allies digging in, fortifying a crumbling wall echoed with a grim determination. This was the moment the scout realized. This would be no ordinary conquest. This was the moment he understood he was witnessing a choice, a conscious collective embrace of a glorious death, and he raced back to his master, Xerxes, to report that the Spartans, the madmen of Greece, were not running. They were waiting. And they were preparing for a feast of battle where the main course would be their own lives, a feast to which they planned to invite the entire Persian army as unwitting guests. A psychological defiance that forms the core of the most legendary last stand in history. A story not of 300 against 100,000, but of an idea against an empire, of discipline against chaos. And to unpack the sheer, staggering improbability of what happened over those 3 days, you must first feel the tectonic scale of the forces colliding on that sliver of Greek coastline. The Achaemenid Persian Empire under Xerxes was not merely a kingdom, it was the ancient world's singular hyperpower, a sprawling behemoth of 44 nations stretched from the Indus River to the Nile Delta, a marvel of administration, engineering, and logistics. And the invasion force launched to finally subdue the irritating, rebellious peninsulas of Greece was an undertaking of almost mythical proportion, a hybrid land and sea operation designed to overwhelm through sheer, breathtaking mass. Modern estimates, piecing together Herodotus's likely exaggerated numbers, still suggest a land army well over 100,000 strong, perhaps even double that, a multicultural tide of subject peoples, Medes in their scaled armor, Scythian horsemen with their composite bows, Libyans in chariots, Ethiopian archers with arrows tipped with stone, the crimson-clad elite corps known as the 10,000 Immortals, their spears tipped with silver and gold, so named because their number never dipped, instantly replenished to maintain a perpetual facade of invincibility. This human flood was supported by a fleet of over 1,200 triremes and 3,000 supply vessels, a vast armada shadowing the army's march down the coast. And the logistical nightmare of feeding and watering this host was solved in a characteristically Persian display of imperial might. Dedicated supply ships followed the fleet, whole rivers were drunk dry, and canals were dug, while the army itself crossed the Hellespont, not by boat, but over 2 magnificent pontoon bridges of papyrus and flax. Engineering marvels that, when destroyed by a storm, prompted Xerxes to famously have the sea itself whipped and shackled as punishment, an act of god-king hubris that set the tone for the entire campaign. This was not just a military expedition, it was the physical manifestation of a worldview, a declaration that the will of the King of Kings was the law of the earth and sea. An unstoppable force of nature aimed squarely at a politically fractured, geographically disjointed collection of rival city-states known as Greece, where the concept of individual freedom and civic identity, however imperfectly applied, clashed fundamentally with the Persian model of imperial submission and tribute. The only hope for this divided Greece lay in a slender geographical quirk, the pass at Thermopylae, the Hot Gates, named for its nearby sulfur springs, a natural bottleneck where the mountains of Caledroman jutted sharply into the Malian Gulf, leaving a track just wide enough for a single cart in its tightest sections. A defender's dream, where numbers meant nothing and courage and armor meant everything. Understanding the defenders requires a descent into the unique, brutal, and utterly uncompromising society of Sparta, a culture that existed for one purpose only: to produce perfect hoplite soldiers, a goal achieved through the infamous agoge, a state-controlled training regimen that began at age 7, when boys were taken from their mothers and plunged into a world of institutionalized hardship. Taught to endure hunger, cold, and pain without complaint, to steal to survive but be punished only for getting caught, to fight with a ferocious discipline that valued the unity of the phalanx, the shield wall, above individual heroism. A Spartan's allegiance was to his Syssitia, his military mess, his battle companion, and his polis. His world was one of stark binaries: victory or death. With your shield or on it, for to return without your shield meant you had thrown it away to flee, the ultimate cowardice. This was the culture that produced King Leonidas, not a young monarch, but a seasoned warrior in his 60s, a descendant of the hero Heracles, hardened by a lifetime of this brutal conditioning. And when the Persian envoys arrived in Sparta, demanding the traditional tokens of submission, earth and water, the story goes they were thrown down a well, told to find both there, a sublime act of defiance that captured the Spartan spirit perfectly. Yet Sparta was also bound by religious custom and political realism. The great festival of the Carnea, sacred to Apollo, forbade major military campaigns during its duration, and the Olympic truce was also in effect, providing a convenient excuse for the Peloponnesian allies, who wished to fortify the Isthmus of Corinth instead of venturing north. Leonidas, therefore, could not march with the full Spartan army. His solution was a masterstroke of tragic symbolism and realpolitik. He would go north as the advance guard, the blocking force, with only his personal royal bodyguard of 300 hand-picked homoioi, equals, all men with living sons to carry on their names, accompanied by perhaps 2,000 helot attendants. A clear signal this was a mission from which return was not expected. They were joined by allied contingents from the Peloponnese, and crucially from central Greece, around 700 Thespians, 400 Thebans, whose loyalty was suspect, 1,000 Phocians, and others, bringing the total force guarding the pass to roughly 7,000. A pimple on the face of the Persian giant, but a pimple positioned at the body's most sensitive choke point. The first 2 days of battle were a brutal tutorial in the lethal efficiency of Greek heavy infantry fighting on ideal terrain. Xerxes, camped in his lavish throne set up to view the anticipated easy victory, first sent in his Mede and Sicyan troops, confident their numbers would simply sweep the obstinate Greeks aside. What followed was a slaughter of geometric precision. The Greek phalanx, with its wall of overlapping bronze-faced aspis shields and forest of long, iron-tipped dory spears projecting from the first 3 ranks, presented an impenetrable front in the narrow space. The Persians, with lighter armor, shorter spears, and wicker shields, could not get close enough to land effective blows. The Greek tactic was not static. They would feign a controlled retreat, drawing the eager Persians into disorder, then suddenly pivot, lock shields, and surge forward in a terrifying cohesive push, the Othismos, a battle of pressure and panic as much as of blades. Herodotus describes the Spartans in particular as performing with a chilling, practiced artistry, rotating fresh men from the rear ranks to the front to maintain maximum ferocity. Their superior training allowing them to fight in a sustained, methodical rhythm, while the Persians fell in heaps. The pass grew thick with Persian dead, and Xerxes, watching from his throne, is said to have leapt up in distress 3 times, fearing for his army. His next move was to commit his best, the Immortals, under their commander Hydarnes. Surely these elite warriors, the pride of the empire, would break the deadlock. But even they failed. The confined space neutralized their skill and numbers just as it had the others. They could not deploy, could not flank, could only throw themselves in successive waves against the bronze and iron wall, and were repulsed with heavy losses. The Spartan wit was as sharp as their spears. The comment about fighting in the shade was more than a punchline. It was a psychological weapon, a display of contempt that fed their own morale and eroded that of the enemy. By the end of the second day, the Persian host was baffled, demoralized, and stacking corpses like cordwood, while the Greek defenders, though weary, held firm, their wall unbreached, their spirit unbroken. The strategy was working perfectly. They were buying the priceless time the Greek coalition needed. Simultaneously, at the Straits of Artemisium, the outnumbered Greek fleet was engaged in a brutal, swirling series of naval clashes with the Persian armada. Battles that, while tactically indecisive, were strategically critical in preventing a Persian naval landing behind the pass. The twin holding actions at Thermopylae and Artemisium were a coordinated gamble, and for 48 hours it seemed the gamble might pay off beyond anyone's wildest hopes. Then came the betrayal. The existence of the Oenopeia Path, a treacherous goat track that wound over the mountains and emerged east of the pass, was known to Leonidas. He had stationed the 1,000 Phocian hoplites specifically to guard this back door, a sound decision. But on the second evening, a local Malian Greek named Ephialtes, seeking reward, betrayed the path's precise location to Xerxes. That night, Hydarnes and his immortals set out, guided by Ephialtes, to execute the flanking maneuver. As they approached the Phocian position near dawn, the rustle of their marching through dry oak leaves alerted the defenders. The Phocians, thinking this was the main Persian attack on their position, scrambled to don their armor and form up on a nearby hill to make their last stand. A tactically sound but ultimately fatal decision, as it left the path itself unguarded. The Persians, seeing the Phocians retreat to the high ground, simply ignored them and marched swiftly on, their mission not to engage a secondary force, but to get behind Leonidas at all costs. When morning scouts brought the catastrophic news to the Greek camp, the moment of decision arrived. Leonidas called a council. The strategic purpose of the stand to delay the Persians and allow the Greek fleet and southern armies to organize was now compromised. With the path turned, the Persians would soon surround the defenders completely. Leonidas, in a move that combined cold military logic with profound symbolic weight, ordered the majority of the Allied forces to withdraw immediately, to live and fight for Greece another day. For himself and his 300 Spartans, however, there would be no retreat. A Spartan never abandoned his post, and the oracle's prophecy about a king's death saving Sparta hung in the air. Their sacrifice would now serve a dual purpose: to cover the retreat of the others, and to elevate their stand into an eternal symbol, a story that would ignite the spirit of resistance across all of Greece. It is here that the often overlooked heroism of the Thespians must be shouted from the historical rooftops. Their 700 hoplites, under their general Thermopylae, refused the order to leave. They were not bound by the Spartan code. They had no oracle foretelling their glory. They simply chose to stay and die for the idea of a free Greece, an act of pure, unadulterated courage that deserves equal billing in the legend. The 400 Thebans, Herodotus claims, were retained by Leonidas under duress as hostages, a suspicious note in the narrative. As the sun rose on that third and final day, Leonidas did something extraordinary. He advanced his remaining force, the 300 Spartans, the 700 Thespians, the reluctant Thebans, and perhaps a few others who stayed, out of the narrow pass and into a slightly wider area in front of the old Phocian wall. This was a deliberate, aggressive shift from defense to a final, all-out offensive attack. He was no longer trying to hold the line. He was seeking to kill as many Persians as possible, and to find a warrior's death worthy of song. What followed was a frenzy of close-quarters combat of almost unimaginable intensity. Knowing death was certain, the Greeks fought with a frenzied abandon, targeting enemy officers, crashing into the Persian ranks with a force multiplied by their desperation. They broke their spears on Persian shields and bodies, then drew their short Xephos swords, and when those shattered, they fought with their hands, their teeth, and the very rims of their shattered shields. Leonidas fell early in this melee, and a savage tug-of-war battle raged over his body. The Greeks, in a display of raw devotion, drove the Persians back 4 times, heaping carnage around them, before finally retrieving their king's corpse. But the noose was tightening. The immortals, having completed their mountain march, now began to appear from the east, entering the pass behind them. The remaining Greeks, perhaps a few hundred by now, withdrew to a small hillock near the wall, making their last stand there, completely surrounded. Here, with their weapons gone, bleeding from countless wounds, they fought on, until the Persian commanders, unwilling to risk more of their men in hand-to-hand combat with these demonic warriors, ordered the archers and javelineers forward. A thick cloud of missiles darkened the sky, the shade Dionysius had joked about, and under that relentless hail, the last of the Spartans and Thespians were buried, their bodies pierced by countless arrows, falling on top of the very hill they had made immortal. Xerxes, in a fit of rage that betrayed his deep psychological wound, ordered Leonidas's body beheaded and crucified, a gross violation of Greek heroic custom, which demanded the honorable treatment of a fallen brave foe. He then had the head placed on a pike, a warning to all who would defy him. The pass was cleared. The Persian army marched through, and Greece south of Thermopylae lay open. Yet, the victory for Xerxes was Pyrrhic and bitter. He had lost staggering numbers. Herodotus claims 20,000, including 2 of his own brothers, and, more importantly, he had lost the aura of invincibility. The story of the stand, carried south by the retreating allies, spread like wildfire. It was not a story of defeat, but of transcendent courage, It proved the Persian war machine could be stopped, that its soldiers could be killed in droves by determined men fighting for their home. The sacrifice became the rallying cry for a unified Greece. At Salamis, just weeks later, the Athenian commander Themistocles would use the memory of Thermopylae to steal the resolve of the panicked Greek fleet. The Spartans, now under Leonidas's nephew Pausanias, would have their revenge the following year at the Battle of Plataea, where the full might of the Spartan phalanx, fighting alongside a united Hellenic army, shattered the Persian land forces for good. In the grand strategic sense, the 300 and their Thespian brothers did not just delay the Persians, they catalyzed the Greek resistance. They provided the emotional fuel, the exemplar of sacrifice that turned a coalition of rivals into a nation of defenders. Their stand demonstrated that strategy could trump sheer numbers, that terrain could be a force multiplier, and that the spirit of free men, fighting voluntarily for something greater than themselves, could withstand the lash of imperial conscription. The legacy of Thermopylae is not in the body count or the territory held. It is in the indelible question it poses to history. What is worth dying for? For Leonidas and his men, it was the messy, contentious, beautiful idea of Greek autonomy, their eleutheria. Their story has been told and retold for 2,500 years, not because they won, but because they chose, with clear eyes and steady hands, exactly how they would lose. And in that choosing, they achieved a victory that echoes eternally. The Hot Gates are not just a place in Greece. They are a metaphor in the human psyche, a reminder that against the overwhelming forces of tyranny, conformity, and despair, a handful of resolute individuals standing together on principle can alter the trajectory of history, can inspire generations long after their names are forgotten, can become in their final moments something more than human. They become a standard, a story, a fire in the dark. So, what is your Thermopylae? What is the pass you are called to defend? Not with violence, but with conviction, with discipline, with the courage to stand when others retreat. Let the echo of their ahoo be a call to your own resolve. If this deep dive into history's greatest last stand ignited something in you, then don't let that inspiration fade. Subscribe to this channel right now and hit the notification bell because we are just getting started. Every week, we dive into the heart of history's most pivotal moments, unpacking the strategies, the personalities, and the untold stories that shaped our world. Your subscription fuels this journey into the past to better understand our present. Share this video with someone who needs a lesson in courage today. Drop your thoughts on what the Spartan sacrifice means to you in the comments below. Let's build a community of the curious and the courageous. And remember, history isn't just about dates and dead kings. It's about the choices that echo and the stands we take that define us. Be part of this story. Subscribe now.